Let me go ahead and knock that off. All right. Hey guys, Bolt here, and like we did last week, this time I am doing a Mandela Catalogue video essay. So last time I really didn't get a time to slow down and talk. So Walton Files video essay was to get ready for 5 and 6 that basically can drop at any time. It does have some time because they haven't animated anything new. They've storyboard. They're in the end of storyboarding, but I'd say at the earliest we can see is maybe late summer, early falls when we're seeing the new one file stuff. But I'd rather have a video essay getting you guys up to par on that stuff. And this is what this video essay is for. This video essay is for the Mandela Catalogue. And we are trying to get a decent go about things. So that's why it's a weird, you can see my bed and stuff. Is because if I just had it, center, it would cover my face a lot. And this way I can kind of like specialize it. So yeah, this is to kind of be like, hey, I'm gonna give you guys so Walton Files, I kind of had to speed through it, so I didn't get a chance to breathe. This time I do, and I can also get some ideas in as I'm going. But I do gotta still kind of get to bed here soon. So anyways, we do these video essays to kind of be like, a lot of these YouTube series are like, here's a time period, now here's one far back, now here's one in the future, now here's one in the between of this timeline and this timeline. And what my job here for these video essays are to put them in order and give you the best information I can come up with. And I'm using these and this to give you basically screen grabs from the videos and shows themselves. All of this stuff is from the channel. By the way, this is from Alex Kister. His channel will be in the description. I don't know if I said it back at the Walton Files one, because Walton Files was also in the description. I want to make sure they're credited, but basically instead of using footage, I'll just use pictures. That way you have a reason to go watch the video if you haven't seen the series itself. So anyways, getting into it, Walton Files, Mandela Catalogue, Volume 6 can drop at any time, so that's why I am doing this. Anyways, Mandela Catalogue takes place in Mandela Catalogue County, Wisconsin. It is off exit 333, which is a big number in the series. If you don't know, that's kind of like one of the biblical numbers. But Mandela County was established back in 1832. And basically this story is based on a skinwalker kind of story, but it's based on alternates. And they're invading this county, and alternates are basically a doppelganger that takes your face and tries to take your place. And of course, they're not the greatest, they're not your clone that can be friends with you. They want to take your place. So anyways, biggest thing that this series has constantly has kind of constantly gone through is that there are a lot of callbacks to biblical times, which I'd say is the genesis of our story. So the biggest thing that everyone should know by now is the biggest figure of the alternates, which is known as False Gabriel. False Gabriel is, by theory, Satan, Lucifer. So the theory goes is that this is the look of the archangel Gabriel, who originally tells Mary about becoming the mother to Jesus, and also is kind of like the teller, the messenger of God. But in this story, it seems like Lucifer, or an alternate, has taken the form of Gabriel to deceive people in history. And if this is a full on biblical story, Lucifer's biggest thing is to act as God's messenger, that he is going to be the savior by making the alternates kind of be the new race instead of the human race. So basically, Lucifer, or alternate, or we're just going to call him Gabriel, just because we do know he is known as Gabriel. But going on, he is like littered in the major events of biblical times. So you get to see some stuff in the show, in the series, like Overthrown and a few others have like classic cartoons from the Bible. Um, and a lot of those are from major events, which one of the biggest one is the Genesis of Earth. Um, Adam and Eve, the very first story of the Bible, where it takes place in the Garden of Eden, and Gabriel, Lucifer, just like in the normal story, instead of being a snake, he is the angel, the false Gabriel, and he influences Adam in some way. So there are two things that kind of contradict each other. So we do get to see the fruit, which this is in the normal story, the fruit of knowledge. Once Adam and Eve bite into this, it allows sin, and kind of like is the start of like the story of, sin versus how, we are made in God's image and all that. And basically this is why things are the way it is nowadays. It's just this started it. This allowed it allowed fear. It allowed things that weren't originally meant, and it allowed sin into us. And it's believed that Lucifer, again, in this universe, had Adam eat this, allowing him to deceive him and kind of influence him into doing stuff that started uh, him to get the ability to make a path. But then, on top of that, later I think the same episode or in another volume, um, it's also mentioned that at another night, Eve runs into an alternate of Adam. So it's weird because it sounds like the story is normal, where the apple of knowledge, or the fruit of knowledge, starts the normal thing of, hey, now that you've had the fruit of knowledge, it has kind of started you on the path of allowing Lucifer's work to start. But it's also here where it looks like it wasn't just eating food, Adam himself was replaced. Um, but anyways, and then on top of that, so after the Genesis, we move on to Noah's Ark. And so in this normal story, Noah is told about by a flood, by God. Basically, he will flood the earth to kind of start anew, and so he needed to get basically two of each species so they can reproduce and begin the world over anew. And Noah and his family were safe on this boat. Um, and the flood knocked out all of life. I think I need to reread the Bible again, but I think some families somehow lived on like higher peaks and stuff. But Noah's family is the biggest one to live from it. But in this story, Gabriel comes to deceive him on the flood, but Noah anyways goes and makes the ark, which in this picture is him and his wife getting approached by Gabriel again, saying, "You went against my word and you went and did something I didn't want you to. On your ark, there will be a new species that once you notice it, it is already over. You will be dead." And it is possible that if Adam wasn't the original alternate, whatever that this story of Gabriel telling Noah about a new thing on the boat, this is probably the first ever alternate in history was on the ark. Um, Moving on, we do have, uh, let's see. Oh, and then moving on to the biggest part is, wait. Okay, so one was Gabriel, two was uh, the fruit, three was Adam's alternate, and four was Noah's Ark. So moving on to the birth of Jesus, which is probably the biggest part of one of the very first uploads, Overthrown, which is showing that in the birth of Jesus, instead of saying, "Hey, there will be a savior born," instead it is Gabriel saying, "I am your savior. I have come to save you." And he goes on to talk to the shepherds that so originally in the birth of Jesus, there is the shepherds, there is Mary and Joseph, and then there is three wise men that are told about the birth of Jesus, and they all come together in Bethlehem to kind of, welcome him. In this one, Gabriel's like, "Hey, shepherds that were originally went to go say him, I am your savior." You know, basically to start spreading the word of him. And then he goes on to deceive Mary, and it's kind of wonky because later in volume 5 there is something that kind of contradicts. It sounds like, yes, he is representing himself as the savior here, but he also could possibly be saying there might be a birth of a his one of his alternates through here too. But he here deceives Mary. He goes to Joseph and starts to put in the seeds of doubt and fear. And he's like, "I will know your greatest fear here, Joseph." Then moving on. In volume 5, what I was going to talk about is it seems like, so this is kind of supposed to be the manger Jesus kind of is normally birthed on, but this is also a story of a shepherd and a woman from another town kind of get together. But it seems like here is a child is born and it is not a human. And I believe this is also telling that maybe Jesus in this timeline has been changed out for an alternate, which is in the universe that alternates take babies to replace them with alternates so that those babies can grow up with human influence so that they can be a part of society better, so they can kind of like put in seeds for better like roots, and so they can't be like moved up. Like, you don't know human emotion, you don't know human perceivings, you aren't human. Where if they're brought up like a normal human, it's weird. Another thing I didn't get a picture of is in a newer thing, they show the death, like the resurrection of Jesus, and I think it's Unraveling Part 2 is what it is. Instead of Jesus getting brought back 7 days later and Mary coming to discover him out, in that one, Mary goes into the tomb through the cartoon and runs into Gabriel. And so it just shows that the birth and like all of the Jesus' story is him pushing himself like really into the story. It's just like, I am the savior, I am your messiah at this point. um Now we move on to more modern times. Moving on to 1978, maybe 1979. We have Mark Heathcliff, who was a very big part of Mandela. It's played by Alex Kischer, and he's like the main character of Volume One. Um, and he is 17, going on 18 during Volume One. But here, back when he was age 4, he does like a drawing of a scary night where he wasn't his dad didn't check under his bed, so he wanted to go sleep with mom, and he had a door that was in the middle of the staircase, and as he passed, he saw a figure standing, an alternate, at the very bottom of the stairs. Which this is one of the biggest alternates, known as the intruder. He kind of is one of the main things that gets the story going. So not only do we get introduced to Mark Heathcliff, one of the main characters, but we also get introduced to one of the main alternates. So both a, not really a protagonist because we'll get to it, but we also got one of the biggest antagonists of the stories. Moving on to in 1981, government really starts taking the knowledge of alternates, and the Department of Temporal Phenomenon is made. Another thing I would like to say is they do revise it back in 1990. Basically, they probably learn more stuff and update their policies. But basically, this is kind of like the way they research and give information out to the public by doing like field tests on alternates. And then, let's see here. June, let's see here. June of 28, I think it is. We do, June 8th of 1990, we run into another big branch family. Jude Murray and Lynn Murray are married on this day. The Murrays are another big part of the story, and we'll get into them here in a second. But their marriage isn't really too big of a thing, but just saying, because they're big characters, here's a little part of their story. Moving on to, it is reported in the 1990s all the way till 2010, population declines. So alternates attacking and replacing people with alternates. And then once people catch on that this is happening and there's an invasion happening, for the safety of their families and themselves, they leave Mandela. And by the time it is 2010, I think they're right above 1,000 people. So for a town, it's very small. Moving on, we move into what I call the 1992 is one of the biggest years of the entire series. This is kind of like, well, the biblical stories are where a lot of the seeds are put in. 1992 is where, like, everything is placed, the dominoes are set up to fall after a few years. And these were where some of our main characters, a lot of their histories are set up in this one year. And I call this like the rising action / the invasion of the alternates. Because while alternates and all of them have been existing since biblical times, if it is true, it is most likely that this year is where they can finally start using things as it come up, because it feels like they've been stuck in Mandela for a very long time. One of the biggest things is April 4th of 92. We have Ruth Weaver and Thatcher Davison, well Davis, oh, excuse me, Thatcher Davis, they get promoted to Sergeant Ruth and Lieutenant Thatcher in the Mandela County Police Department. They are two other big people. Well, Thatcher is a big person. Ruth is his best friend. They are big. Thatcher is a big character. Another reason why it's like just like the marriage of the Murrays, it is a good point to kind of mention them here. And then August of 29, the Murrays do get a divorce. This is the same document on the very bottom. It is showing they do get a divorce in late 92. In late of August 30th is the bottom date here. This is an alternate that shows up at Mark Heathcliff's house. So at back in 78, 79 is when age 4, Mark, he runs into the intruder at the bottom of the stairs, and it looks like little by little through the years, alternates show more obvious stuff to him. This is where I do like not having to rush to work. Is that Mark? I didn't put this as a note in my script. Mark Heathcliff is a very religious person, and he shows up to church. He prays. He does all that stuff. And a thing about alternates is you really can't be religious in this universe because it invites the alternates and it makes you it gives them a way in. And as he grows up by age 17, 18 here, he's like getting fully like hunted by the alternates here. And he becomes anxious. He feels cornered. He can't really go anywhere. And this is in broad daylight, an alternate showing up at his window with an elongated neck. And this is August 30th, like I said, in the bottom right corner here. Then we move on to, let's see here. Running back to the Murrays, Jude and Lynn do have a son named Adam. Here in this document, back when the Mark's age 4 document was written up, they were showing a toddler stress assessment where they'd show sound. Well, they would throw some sounds, throw some pictures at the kid so that they can kind of gauge how the child feels with those things. And it looks like Adam does not have any kind of reaction to any of this stuff. And a thing that I mentioned back during the Genesis is that while it is not guaranteed that Jesus was replaced with a alternate, Adam, it seems like by this point, September 14th, by this assessment, is that him and multiple children have been replaced by alternates to kind of like seed them. And it's just like, so this child is not fully human because he has no reaction to any of the sounds or pictures shown. And it looks like he's not the only one at this point. Then we move on to we move a day back to September 13th, back to the Mark Heathcliff story. Caesar Torres is his best friend. Sadly, Caesar is replaced by a doppelganger alternate. And here in this moment in Volume 1, we do get to see, before this was timestamps of Caesar's house, little movements, and they show an alternate approaching the house. And it looks like Caesar's doppelganger got into the house, and he killed his mom, Caesar's mom. So Caesar's been killed, he's been replaced, and he got his mother killed. And then on this day too, he calls Mark, who at this point is like hiding away in his house to avoid the alternates. And Caesar calls him to aid him with his mom being knocked out. He approaches the house and he gets caught. He gets lured into a trap by this Caesar doppelganger, gets followed back to his home, um, and sadly, he gets cornered for I think it is 2 days. So on September 14th, we do get to see some stuff of, the door, like even in bright daylight, you can see the alternate pacing back and forth. He knocks on the thing. He's like, I will not leave. I will not leave you alone. Open the door. And on the 15th, Mark has had enough. He feels too cornered. He's running out of options. He's called police. They're not showing up. Um, and he eventually goes to confront the Caesar doppelganger. And sadly, he does die. Or so a thing that we don't get to see until late. I will not mention it until later, but there's a thing called mad disease, which is like basically you are told something by the alternate and you can't handle this information it tells you, and you end up having to turn the gun on yourself. And it looks like, um, with Mark already being in a very stressful mental place, getting told this stuff gets him to take his own stuff. So, bad decision, Mark. And it does look like in Volume 1, this, a lot of people say it could be the doppelganger of Caesar, but it's also very possible this is Mark getting a doppelganger of himself also to replace him. Um, then moving on to, so like I mentioned, he did call the police and uh, no one came for him. Another thing that I want to mention before moving on is that, like I said, he was highly Mark is highly religious, and as he is stuck in his room, he starts questioning: is whatever person I'm praying to, is this the religion I've been taught on? Because it seems like something is listening in, something knows that I am religious. It is using this against me. What am I praying to? But after the 15th, eventually, finally, on the 21st, Thatcher is dispatched to Mark by the school he goes to, because even though he is 18, he still has high school, and the high school reports that he is missing. They send Thatcher out to his house to kind of figure out what's happening. Finds Mark dead, and he finds his notes about who am I praying to. He kind of figures out that he's been like anxiety ridden, and he finds a camcorder that records probably weeks of this torture of being cornered by alternates, and it runs into this, which is something at this point in time they do not know about. They do not know alternates can use TVs to portray themselves. And I believe based on them seeing this camcorder footage, Thatcher reports this to the phenomenon department, and this makes them do the act of the Mirror and Analog TV Destruction Act, which is basically if you have a TV that is analog or you have a mirror, they need destroyed if they're in Mandela County. So I believe because of Mark's footage of it, they learn that they can travel or at least come from the TV. And then late September, we do get a report from the Murrays. So there's multiple neighbors who call about noises. And then, of course, Jude Murray himself reports a alternate in the house, and he reports that his son is in trouble and that his wife may be hurt. And Thatcher and Ruth are called out. A big thing that I would like to mention about Thatcher is that normally police department is told to ignore calls that sound like they have alternates a part of it. If there's an intrusion, leave it alone, basically. Um, because we'd rather lose someone who's in the house with them rather than an officer. But Thatcher is one of the people that is trying his best to solve the issue and, find these people that are going missing, or at least get some kind of answer to the family. Um, and Ruth is also like one of the most outgoing people. So it's just like these people, even though it's an invasion, a house invasion, they still go to the place. And sadly, they find out that Lynn has been basically the intruder is one of the people who can pass through the TVs. And he takes the possibly alternate baby Adam, and this makes Lynn Murray be too distressed to deal with the situation that she uses a rope. But in this image, an officer has put cameras around the house, and it's detected that the intruder or any kind of alternate using the spectrums of like the analog and stuff is moving Lynn's body around. What are they doing with her body? We do not know. Maybe they need this for purposes. Um, but so Thatcher and Ruth come across her dead. Um, that scared me actually. This is Ruth's doppelganger. So when they come up to the thing, Ruth is separated from Thatcher, and Thatcher comes across a probably the intruder himself, but he comes across a alternate, and his instincts go off, flee, flee, and oh, dude, this is so disturbing. This is probably the biggest moment of all of Mandela that gets me like goosebumps. Um, and he runs, and in that sadly ends up getting Ruth killed, and later in the years, um, a Ruth doppelganger is used to haunt and kind of be like, yeah, it's your fault. Ruth is dead. You could have done so much more, um, and that's why this one exists. Um, and then after this, so after leaving the Murray house, he runs back to the police department to request help, but he does get cornered, and an alternate follows him there, and they make a doppelganger of him. Um, and after this, he sadly tries to fire on it. It tries to tell him, he tries to use mad on him, but he isn't affected by it, so he runs back home. He closes himself off to the problem. The Ruth doppelganger is sent on him to kind of make him feel guilty. Um, but a thing that we did not get to see is we do see that Lynn is dead, baby. Adam is taken, but we find out through Volume 5 that Jude was a coward and was able to run away after the call for Thatcher. So he runs off to a safe home through a organization. So apparently, I didn't get a picture of this, but so there is an organization that basically gives you a brand new start, new identity, new place to live, and it sends a car out to get the people, and that is it. Um, they don't get to see a way of it passing. It goes one way, and I think either this is alternates getting a hold of people trying to leave through this method, or this is an organization that knows, hey, we need to get out of this way without having any problems with the alternates. But sadly, Jude here, feeling guilty, um, isn't able to fully go on the plan. And he is also a high profile for the alternates. Apparently, it isn't. We don't know anything at this point, but um, in one of the many things we get to see through this episode is we see that Gabriel reaches out to him through dreams and says, "You could have been so much more. It was you were meant to be something," which I believe he was supposed to be the person to raise a baby Adam um, properly. But now that he's running away, it's time to get him punished, which they send an alternate who is also well known. He is known as N, which is basically an over simulated alternate who is based on a nun who's like a messenger who uses mad to the highest. Um, and he's sent out to basically dispatch on Jude. Jude, there's two things that happen to well, actually, there's technically three things. So no matter what, Jude has mad disorder by the end of it. He is given pills to deal with mad, which I believe is also to go against him and actually make it worse rather than better. Um, which I think there is another thing that I'm gonna mention later on in the video. Um, but anyways, so I think the medication is making it worse. He has mad disorder, and then there's also the problem of just I think he does die very muchly at the end because it's weird that we don't get to see him in modern day. More like early 2000s episodes we do get later on, but it's weird that he isn't around for Adam when he does come back. And it's kind of weird that Gabriel had his sights set on him. Moving on to the aftermath parts. March of '95 right here. This is a magazine issue that apparently they do try to get a hold of Thatcher for more information on what his take on the alternate invasion, and he basically because two things: either this is him hiding away in his house to avoid dealing with the alternates, or this is alternate Thatcher, which based on his own words, Thatcher's doppelganger is very one for one. So it's very much that this is either an alternate not trying to give any information out, or this is Thatcher just trying to get away from the situation. But he is withholding info on the invasion, is what this is saying. And then moving on to July 7th, well, actually, July of 2007, we're jumping quite a few years. So for that magazine article, we jumped 3 years after the death of Ruth. Then we jump to 2007. This is Mark Heathcliff right here. This is Mark Heathcliff, and this is his sister, Sarah. So Sarah in 2007, due to her disappearing, well, not disappearing, but a covered up death of her brother, she tries to figure out what happened because it feels like Mandela has, stuff happening. So she goes on to try to do a paranormal club, and she gets a hold of someone, and get that someone is Adam Murray, and they make the Bythorn Paranormal Society in 2007. And this is basically a group that goes out to kind of investigate stuff about the surrounding area, mostly Mandela. A thing about Bythorn. So Bythorn is like the neighbor to Mandela. So Bythorn and Wishaw County. I can't really pronounce it. They're like next. They're like the sibling or like the cousin of Mandela. And it's like the first place that people disperse to get away from the alternates. So people of like the families that survived from the alternates and have people missing are probably in this town or county. And then due to like them being messing with the alternates, um, because they're doing something against the government themselves, saying don't mess with that, we'll do with it. They are wanted by the FBI for messing with alternates. Um, Jumping a little bit further into 2009 with January 12th, we meet Adam Murray, who's the other person who established BPS with Sarah. Adam Murray, who's now a teenager, and his well the he is the best friend of him, Jonah Marshall. Um, these two are members, founding member and later on member. Um, they are called out to Caesar's house. So back in Volume 1, um, Caesar's house is what we see in like these pictures of like every few minutes, or just like they're just like stuff felt. Mark is sent to go set up cameras and stuff. Um, but that's how he gets lured in to have that doppelganger of Caesar follow him home. So in this one, these two are lured to the house of Caesar um, for a job that is set up as a ghost cat by a woman, but it turns out to be just alternates trying to lure them in. Um, let's see here. Um, so on January 13th, so Jonah stays in the vehicle they came in. Adam goes in the house to actually do exploration, set up cameras, do the normal stuff. Adam is talked to by alternate. And this is like starting to set up that Adam is indeed an alternate at this point. That is just brought up as human. That misses a few things. Like he doesn't have emotional connection to certain situations. But as he sleeps and kind of like investigates, one night the next night they stay. The alternates are like, hey, wake up. You're supposed to be doing a job right now. Wake up. Noticing, like, wake up like a Russian, what is it called? One of those secret spies that you have to do a word to, a sleeper agent. So Adam is basically a sleeper agent, and this alternate is trying to wake him up. And then on the 14th, which is literally just a few hours later from him getting woken up, Adam goes into the basement that was once locked, finds a analog television that the intruder tries to use to contact and talk to Adam for a little bit. And Jonah, knowing that this situation is going down the hole, leaves, but is most likely, I think it is that guy that hunted down Jude. He hunts down either him or Gabriel, even possibly. So it's very weird. So it's either Gabriel, intruder, N, or a now awakened Adam hunts Jonah down, and kills him. And then afterwards is the climax, the unleashing of the things. So basically, Genesis is just like, hey, Lucifer's using his seeds to start planning in Adam and Eve and Ark and Jesus, and he's kind of setting his seeds. And in 92, or like slowly getting it, 92 is where like these actions are what sets up things now. And the payoff was slowly showing. This is the true payoff. This is what is gonna blow up in people's faces now. Real quick thing, this is Evelyn Miller, which is the girlfriend to Adam, who based on this little part of volume 4, I believe. Um, Her and Adam get into a fight, possibly over how he talks about alternates, and he's intrigued by them, and he has no he's on a death march. He wants to investigate, learn more about what's happening in Mandela, and a lot of people kind of are like, hey, that's not right. You should have some kind of self preservation. Um, but during one of the talks, Eve is like, hey, I don't really like what you're saying and how you're talking. This is kind of dumb. And they get into a big fight and break up. Um, Another thing you gotta notice is that Adam, Evelyn, Eve. This is Adam and Eve, the genesis of how things come apart, probably. Is if Eve was probably by his side, he probably would have taken him being an alternate a little bit better. Um, so after he comes back from probably being the one who killed Jonah, he reports to Sarah about the death of Jonah, and they set up a whole thing announcing his death. Um, and instead of him actually putting in the date, this is, I think, when they started the investigation. Oh no, this is a few hours before the official death, I believe. Because I think it was 4 a.m. on the 14th is when he died. Um, so anyways, so Evelyn breaking up with Adam. Adam now turns to Sarah to kind of hey, Jonah's dead, but I got some cool footage. And she's basically like, I don't care about your footage. Someone's died. And Adam basically has no one really to turn to. Um, and through all this stuff happening, the intruder comes over the little talking app and says, "Hi there, son." It's basically just like, "Hey, you're not Adam Murray. You're an alternate pretending to be a human. You need to notice that now." Um, in the alternate, so this intruder is shown to be also the man in the mirror, um, and I think he's got quite a few names, but the intruder is the biggest one. A lot of people are knowing him by, but this is kind of him, kind of he was Adam was talked to before Jonah died, but this is, hey, you are an alternate, putting it in his face. Um, and then let's see here. After that little quick thing, this is Dave Lee. This is the second person Alex Kister plays as. There's a third person during a commercial for the medicine that Jude takes, but this is the biggest other character he plays. So Dave Lee is, I think it's Mandela Tech is his company. It's basically a video store. I think he does some computer stuff, but the biggest thing is he has analog TV. He rents stuff, but because of the Destroy Mirror and analog television, and Mandela has a very low population, business is slow. But he is good with technology, so Thatcher comes to him for trying to figure stuff out. And he figures out that through these Bible stories, so those Bible cartoons you see Overthrown, he takes it through and makes copies of the cartoon. And as you go through copies, things are made. There are edits that are made through the copy. Yes, film grain, and the crappier the audio, the crappier the visual. But by these later generations, things like the blocky face, the elongated things, that it's showing the story and the actual secrets that the alternates are keeping from those early days and where they come from, their origins and how deep of like they're in religion, like they have roots, and this kind of gives Dave and Thatcher um, evidence, and they can kind of learn from this, kind of build on what makes how alternates work. Why are they targeting certain people? How does MAD work? So MAD disease, I don't think affects if you are not very religious, which Dave doesn't get affected by having analog television and viewing it properly. But the thing is, because he is messing around and learning about the genesis of the alternates, he does detect a friend, or multiple friends. This is someone on Unraveling Part 2. He's over here showing the film grain, but he runs into an alternate stalking him. Then, after doing this stuff for a little bit, he sadly doesn't have enough business to keep the doors open. And he has to shut his business down. And then on top of this, Eve, Adam's ex, works for him, but she goes and like watches the stuff that's meant for Thatcher to kind of see stuff. So it's like not only is his employee kind of putting danger, but he's also got no money to go. So he sends Eve to the police department, probably to be a secretary or something. Thanks to Thatcher, he sends her to get a job there. And then he has a friend through the church that kind of borders Mandela in the county. And it's called O'Brien is his name. And he takes a job for the church to kind of go. And then this is Eve at the police department. Kind of wondering about. She kind of learns more about Adam and stuff and why he is the way he is. And then following the advice, Dave goes to the church, and it turns out O'Brien is in fact Gabriel, who was luring in Dave because he is the Mandela prophet, because he knows how to learn stuff through those tapes, through the analog, through the VHS. You know too much. You are too skilled at what you do. I need to knock you off the board now. So he is able to lure him in through his friend, lure him into a church, and because it is a church, it puts him into belief, which means he now has a way in to knock out Dave. He appears to him, and because it is most likely Lucifer, you're not supposed to view those holy figures, because in a story in the Bible, I think is Saul who turns into Paul, he views God and goes blind. And through this thing, viewing Gabriel or Lucifer, it melts his eyes and like his brain goes mushy. Basically, Dave dies by viewing Gabriel. Let's see here. And then moving on. So Eve runs into an alternate trying to scare her off. She runs back home. Adam comes to try to like get comfort from Eve, and he's full alternate at this point. You can see this in volume 2. Like during one of the clips, you can hear the that is Adam as an alternate, and this is him showing up to Eve to kind of get some comfort. And once she sees him, she is scared shitless. And this basically makes him probably think, I don't have anywhere to go. And then he kind of doesn't take being an alternate very good. But so with Dave dead, Eve kind of, it's kind of left to interpretation if she, So I don't know if seeing alternate uh, Adam is before going to the police department, so maybe she was killed by an alternate that was there. Um, or like she was able to make it back to find alternate Adam. But anyways, so with almost everyone off the board except for Sarah Heathcliff, which we don't know if she's gonna show up again anytime soon. But Thatcher comes across Adam, who's dealing with being an alternate, um, and Thatcher kind of catches on. But the thing is, um, Thatcher, in his own like volition to try to like find out what happened to Mark, what happened to Adam, what happened to the Murrays, kind of like getting all these cold cases figured out. He's lured people into the trap of the alternates. Um, and then it is reported because it is on the border of Mandela. Um, there's a news cruise who um, Dave is found, and because it is on the edge of it, another town covers it, which means the news comes in, covers Mandela. Mandela has some news for once, which flocks people to go figure out what's happening with Mandela. Um, Viewing of things in Mandela allows for alternates to pop in and expand how far they can go. It's not just Mandela in trouble now. It is anyone who can view this newscast, and then it spreads as it goes through. And because they don't have a mirror and analog TV destruction act, is they can go through the mirrors and the TVs. And at the end of, I think it is volume 3. Well, no, volume 4. At the end of volume 4, after the death of Dave, Gabriel report, like, basically, I've deceived them. I've killed the prophet. He says, by making himself the O'Brien, he has taken the religion, the prayers. Now that he's dealt with the police department, Thatcher's out of the way. Possibly Eve's out of the way. They have the documents that tell that Adam is an alternate and of other things. So now, very necessary things to kind of give out what is happening. So now you don't got people who praying to probably actual God. You don't have documents to kind of give you evidence. And the one guy who can probably figure out how to deal with alternates is dealt with. And then the one guy who has the push and shove to do so is basically running around trying to clutch at straws now. And then this is jumping to 2011-ish, or like this is a TikTok. And it is shown here that an alternate is in the background, most likely using the mirror that this girl is using to do makeup. That in modern times, alternates are spreading through social medias and mirrors, and it's not just the surrounding area of Mandela or like the counties like Bythorn. It is probably national, maybe even worldwide a problem. Let's see here. Oh, and then the thing I didn't get to see this. It's a more recent video, but in 2011, a woman tries to kind of figure out what happened with Mandela, because her grandparents went there, and an alternate uses the internet on like a little forum to be like, hey, your grandparents wanted to see you one last time. You want to come to Mandela to get dealt with? Basically trying to lure in or like scare and allow them to kind of go mess with that girl. That creeped me out. By I should have read. Okay, moving on. So far, basically, it was biblical times. Gabriel's over here getting his hands in every single major story that makes us the way it is now. Then in the 78, 79, alternates are showing up in Mandela, but not as much. But in 92, there's a full on invasion, and Mark is killed. The Murrays are killed. Adam is turned into a baby alternate to be raised as a human in disguise. Um, Ruth is killed. Thatcher gets pushed into hiding. One of the only few cops who were actually trying to do a decent job to save human lives. So basically, the police department loses its two best cops in '92, and then the baby alternates are existing, and people are losing their lives left and right. And as of 1990 and 2010, the population is plummeting. Once we jump to 2007, however, it's kind of like, okay, Bythorn Paranormal Society is getting set up. Now we know that Sarah is trying to figure out stuff. Now we know that Adam is kind of like trying to learn more about alternates. Basically, there are groups that are trying to learn about alternates that aren't the government, like the temporal department. They kind of kept a lid on things, but now groups like BPS is trying to look into these things. And while the government tries to handle those people before it can get worse or those people will get themselves killed, it's a major problem. And this kind of also is like, if people are following these people, that means there's going to be interest in Mandela outside of Mandela and by Thorne and all that. Because paranormal activity is a big thing a lot of people like because they like the idea of something else. Moving on to, and then of course 2009 is when, Adam is revealed to be an alternate. Things start falling apart. Dave is killed, so now that the one person who can figure out stuff is gone. Thatcher is on a wild goose chase, trying to clutch at straws. So basically, it's just like biblical times. Alternates are starting up. Mandela has some alternates here and there, but in '92 is the full-on invasion. 2007, interest of outside things of Mandela start existing. 2009 is when, things are sprung into full action. Things are dealt with. Now there isn't anything holding the invasion from getting out into the rest of the world. And then by 2011, it is affecting probably the world. And then moving on to things we do know about the alternates is that thanks to this is Officer Brooker. He takes a picture of, I think this is the Murray house or Mark Heathcliff's house, or even the safe house that Jude is shown in Volume 5. This is N, and he is just kind of looking about. He knows that Officer Brooker is there, but instead of outright going and killing him or being mad, he is just like studying what the officer is doing. The alternates aren't fully aggressive. I think it is the Gabriel and higher ups are like they tell certain targets to be taken over, but they study humans to kind of like learn off of them, be able to deal with them. And this is, and like I said, this is the one that he is a overly studied nun, basically. We go into the types. There are 3 types. This is the doppelganger, the one that tries to take over your life. Then we move on to detectable, type 2, Gabriel, Lucifer. And then we have type 3, which I think this was originally how N looked. And basically these are the ones that don't look human at all. No face, like the weird things. Moving on, this is showing that by a certain point, they are full on, like, it is very hard to tell the normal human from the alternate. So it's very hard to kind of tell the difference, else than a few small, like, skin problems. They're full on trying to take over the human race as the main race on this planet. Um, and that's their main objective. And then we get into MAD, the metaphysical awareness disorder, which, like I've mentioned before, alternates come in, talk to you, chit chat in your ear, like, and basically tell you how reality really is, or like overexpose you to info you didn't want to know. And 95% of cases ends in turning a gun or using a rope. Um, and mad only the other 5% that live are people that are probably not very religious, and it's just like, as long as you don't go searching or you don't really care, it's like water off your back, you will survive a encounter. um and then, like, pills and therapy is existing to kind of deal with it. Another jump scare that gave me a little bit of goosebumps. This is the intruder from volume 2. This is, well, not volume 2. um when they first go over Lynn being distraught over at baby Adam's disappearance. um Originally we only seen age 4 Mark's intruder, which is just the hoodie guy. um and this is, um this would technically be the, actually, maybe. So intruder and this intruder come about the same time. um I know Mark deals with Caesar, but earlier on he finds the hoodie guy. So I think this is supposed to be the same intruder as the one Mark met back at age 4. um but this kind of the point where alternates live on separate spectrums from us. They can travel through mirrors and TVs. They don't need to just physically walk into your place. They can just, if you have stuff that is screened. And then through the TikTok and all that, it's shown that maybe they can also deal with other screen devices. It doesn't have to be an analog TV, but that's a maybe. And then we get into um, other things. So back in 2007, 2009, this is Face Studio 2, a program that basically says, hey, give a picture of your face. It'll be put on this model, and that model will talk for you, and it'll move your lips through AI. But this makes us a database that if you use it, an alternate can use your face down the line. So this is like showing how the doppelgangers exist. But then there is, back when Jude called for Thatcher and Ruth to show up and investigate the death of Lynn, baby Adam going missing, and the alternates invading the home, we get introduced to another. This is the intruder. This is intruder's other name, Stan Lee. So there is an actual real life show that uses this face in the same manner of just like, hey kids, let you close your eyes and let me imagine stuff. In this one, Stan Lee, or the intruder, uses toddlers or young children to imagine a friend, imaginary friend, but that friend, based on the imagination of that kid, which is type 3 of the alternates, is created through mental imaging. So type 1 is basically Face Studio 2, or just an alternate trying to copy you through actually physically seeing you. And then type 2 is Gabriel. Type 3 is what kids and toddlers imagine into their homes. Some things I'd like to mention real quick. Let's see here. Oh, right here you can kind of see the facial state of Stanley and the intruder. Um, let's see, where is it? Oh, here. So this is Dr. Jack uh, going into some randos, things that we haven't seen these people in a minute. Dr. Jack Williamson. This is a possible person that can come up in the future. This is the family doctor for the Murrays. So he's the one who gives the pills to Jude in Volume 5. He is the person who made this assessment for Adam. But in the phone call for Volume 5, I believe that it is an alternate, or at least someone working for the alternates, um, that supplies the pills and kind of gives an opportunity to kind of put words in his mouth. Because um, it feels weird how this doctor is vibing. Um, but could he be a big part of the story because he is the doctor that is the family doctor of Murray's, which is which are big characters. Um, but it's also the fact that he gets a voice in Volume 5. So it's like, is he going to be a big character? We also learn about some characters. There's probably more characters I didn't get to note on. But there's also Noah, who's a friend of Adam's, who we get to see through the logs when in the chatting thing. He may not be really important because all he does is say, "Hey, you're gonna be on Red Dead Redemption," or something like that. "Hey, you want to play a game with me?" Basically, is what he says. And then we do get to see an Amanda who has like beef with Adam. And then the biggest one, which I believe, if anything, he's gonna be in my Walton Files video, I did the same thing of like these are characters that might be brought up in the future. One of the biggest characters of Walton Files is Chris, who's like he's a what is it called? A Bunny Smiles employee who has been there since the missing era when Bonds first starts opening. He's also been there since, it's only been an idea. And Chris is kind of like a head of the employees and is the one who gives like the caretakers of K9 the ability. He's the one who kind of gives you a rundown on stuff. He's the aged employee that's a little bit higher than normal employees. He is shown to be a part of. He helps Felix put the animatronics into K9. He's also mentioned by Brian later on. I believe this character might be something brought in, which is Tyler Johnson, who it looks like he's a friend of, just like Noah to Adam, but it's also like he kind of gives me the vibe of he might be another BPS, Bythorn Paranormal Society member, because not only is like the last text look like it's like, hey, can you explain this thing to me? But it's also just like Jonah gets a full name because he's a work person. Sarah Heathcliff, member, kind of like a professional wise. So if this was a friend, Noah has just his name and a bunch of things. This is a full name displayed. So this is probably a professional courtesy for Tyler, saying that he might be either someone that has some other business with Adam, or this is another BPS employee or member. But anyways, that is it. It's a little bit longer than Walton Files, but I'm also getting a chance to breathe, talk more about it. I'm sorry about my voice drying out. I have been talking for an hour. But anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully you like this. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. SB Studios is kind of my side project stuff. Nancy Drew Mysteries is every Monday. I'm trying to get into more reactions, mobile games, and other stuff to kind of fill up the week so you guys have more content. But Monday is the only guarantee. I have a main channel what is linked in the description. It is all linked to the channel itself. Bolt B dot o dot l t o dot t dot in all capitals. It is my main channel where I play games. Right now, I'm playing Resident Evil and Amnesia. Resident Evil 5 and Amnesia. Um, but here soon, I'll be filling up times with other games I want to get into, and also new stuff on both this channel and that channel, if it ever comes up on Fridays. And then on Bolt, I have the content on here will come out on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and Mondays are only guaranteed. Where on Bolts, it's Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Basically, one series will be on Tuesdays and Saturdays, while the other one will be on Thursdays and Sundays. Basically, the other days are for extra content. I just want to like put up there if I don't want to put it for a full-on series, or I just kind of want to cover it as soon as possible, so I can jump on the bandwagon before it's gone. Like when the new Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic comes out, I'm gonna be doing extra playthroughs on Bolt. Mother tell you may well be. But anyways, and then I also stream on Twitch. That's also in the description. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully I can recover my voice because I got a bunch of stuff to do. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.